Ireland, the low-tax European home of Apple, Facebook, and Google, will raise its corporate tax rate to 15%, joining a global agreement.
Here's a summary of the article.
Ireland said on Thursday it would join an international agreement to set a minimum corporate tax rate of 15%. The country dropped its opposition to an overhaul of global corporate tax rules, agreeing to give up its 12.5% tax for large multinationals with revenues in excess of €750 million. Joining this agreement is an important decision for the next stage of Ireland's industrial policy, a decision that will ensure that Ireland is part of the solution, Finance Minister Paschal Donohoe told a news conference. All but a handful of the 140 countries involved signed up to the July deal, brokered by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, that marked the first rewriting of international tax rules in a generation. The US Treasury, which had pressed Ireland to support the global minimum tax, hailed Dublin's decision as putting the world on a path toward a generational achievement to ensure corporations pay their fair share of taxes. If Ireland had maintained its lower rate, multinationals that book profits there could be forced to pay the additional tax elsewhere under the proposals. The government said it had received assurances from the European Commission that Ireland could maintain the 12.5% rate for firms with annual turnover below €750 million and keep tax incentives for research and development. The Commission also promised it would stick faithfully to the OECD agreement and not seek a higher rate among member states, Donohoe said.
This post received a score of 48,000, with an upvote ratio of 95%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Before corporations find a new tax haven. Shit, they probably already have a new one ready to go.
That's the point of this new agreement. They can't. The reason they were in Ireland is they needed to be in the EU, and Ireland had the best rates within the EU. Now all EU countries have at least this 15% rate, so they have nowhere better to go. That's also the only reason Ireland did this. Apple has nowhere better to go, so Ireland is hoping Apple will stay.
Greater than Ireland is hoping Apple will stay. With the UK out, Ireland is now the only country in the EU that's primarily English-speaking. That's not a small thing to the average monolingual American. Although technically there are more English speakers in the Netherlands.
Excuse me. You're obviously overlooking the glorious island of Malta.
Which is also a tax shelter for the banking sector, isn't it?
Hell yeah, it is, and they don't like people talking about it.
Maltese person here. The government is insanely corrupt, and definitely responsible for Daphne's murder by creating a culture of impunity. But the government doesn't mind people speaking about its tax incentives, in fact they advertise it. What's the point of feeling shame when greedy capitalists embrace it regardless of the moral costs? Hell, you can even buy a Maltese passport and by extension the right to live anywhere in the EU with a couple $100,000.
Now, I just need to find a way to not pay taxes so that I can save the money to pay Malta so I can not pay taxes. Think.
Sorry to break it to you, the game is rigged. You need a lot of money to use the mechanisms that save you even more money. On the bright side, if you don't have a dragon's hoard of cash, you can at least take pleasure in knowing the fact that you're subsidizing somebody else's wealth. Party popper.
Greater than you can at least take pleasure in knowing the fact that you're subsidizing somebody else's wealth. But I'm tired of having that pleasure. I want the pleasure of someone subsidizing my wealth.
It's not the corporate tax rate that is helping corporations to pay net 2 or 3% tax on profits. It's the IP and research taxes. Until these loops are closed, then corporations will still manage to pay less tax than what's advertised on the tin.
IP should be taxed on a scale over time. Stop companies hoarding and gouging. The research tax reduction should come with the condition that they publish all findings, even if unflattering, looking at FB here, unless it's a legitimate trade secret of something.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.